Hey, Sumit on this side. So I've been creating a bunch of videos around how I build software using coding agents. I've been doing a few videos for the last quite a few months now, but finally I came to a conclusion that I would create a slightly longer video with many shortcuts because all through the day I work full time. I do a bunch of other things. I live in a small village and I am getting into farm life. I'm getting into livestock. I also run a hostel here slash a homestay with other people who are also like the guest family. If you want to work digitally remotely, you come here. This is a small Himalayan village here, very small. One day I'll show you that. But yeah, um, so this is a new style of video that I'm posting for the first time today. This has many cuts. So this is me going through the journey of data as I work on a daily basis. So this will probably be such short videos every day. I'll join them together and I'll create one video. And these shortcuts will definitely be focused on actual coding, actual stuff. So I have, just to kind of give you again the introduction, I have this terminal always open. This has many tabs. The first two tabs are where I work on data. That's my product. And I'm going to show you mostly the third tab, which is where I have the coding agent. So in this case, I have Codex. I have Codex open. So in all these videos, you'll see Codex is open. But I also work on client projects. And those are, so my tabs are numbered, like the even numbers are for running the backend or the front end. So even numbers 2, 4, 6, 8 are all running the backend or the front end of the projects. And then 3, 5, 7, 9 are for running the coding agent slash some miscellaneous testing, whatever that I do for each project. So right now for this video, for this particular video, I'm going to be focused on dwata. Dwata, just for context, is an old attempt. I've tried it multiple times. I've failed. I've stopped multiple times. This time I came back to it because I submitted this as a contest to the Gemini contest by Google. There was a Gemini hackathon, and it's a retake on the idea that your inboxes, your email inboxes, and your documents on Google Drive, Dropbox, wherever they may be, they are a treasure trove. They have so much data. Like you have invoices, I have invoices, I have bills going back 20 years. Okay, so there is so much there, and this is something that I felt would be like a first class product. It's a tremendous opportunity to open up that data, but I've always tried to think, how can we do that locally? So after many trials, it didn't really work out the first few times simply because of constraints, my own constraints of like building the entire system. It's a large piece of software to build, but now it finally works to a point that I could submit for the contest. This version that I'm showing in this video is slightly different. It's in a different branch. The one for the contest is in the main branch. If you go to GitHub, you'll see both the branches, but I cannot change the main branch simply because I'm not allowed to, because the contest is not judged yet. So I'm not supposed to change the contents of the main branch. So if you go to this URL, GitHub brainless/dwata, brainless is my username, you'll find all the sources, everything that I mentioned here. Please give a like if you like it, but feel free to go through it, ask me questions. I'm happy to help you out. And also this particular branch, all the sources are in this branch. There's a special reverse template branch. This is a new experimental concept that I'm building. It's basically, how do you take a template? So think of emails from the same sender. They will have like a similarity, right? Because from the same sender, maybe from the same telecom provider, over a certain period of time, of course, the template can change. Their internal template can change over a period of say 5, 6, 10 years. But within a short span of time, maybe 12 months, 24 months, they'll probably be sending you 20 emails which will fit that same template, which means it has been generated by the same template. So the reverse template mechanism is just the reverse of it. That's it. So you're trying to detect from the outcoming emails, right? So the outcoming content, just think of Django templates, any PHP template, anything where you have curly braces and variables, something like that, right? But JavaScript, any language. Think that there was an original template, and then emails were created from the template, which means there were variable data that were put in. What if you put all those emails that you have, all that content that you have, and you poked holes where you saw data to be changing? That's the technique behind a reverse template process. It's a very cool algorithm, very nice. It's basically just word distance calculation. Not word distance, sorry. It's just like you're looking at the text, you're calculating all the words, you're putting them sentence by sentence, and you're saying, okay, which word changed from one email to the other, okay? And you'll see the consistent pattern that, okay, these words are changing. That's it. Also, to detect that this fits generally to a template, we can use a word edit distance or Levenstein distance. Basically, how many words are changing, right, from one sentence to its comparative next sentence in the other email, or sorry, the same sentence in the other email. That will give you that is it fitting to the same template. Whichever way, basically this is a reverse template. So we create the template with the variable placeholders. So this video is about a few more nuances that I've been fixing about it. You can go ahead and feel free to look at the source code, try it out. It needs the Rust and the npm tooling. The front end doesn't really work. There are many things broken in the front end, but you will be able to run the CLI commands. All the commands are there. You can just ask an AI agent to figure out what are the commands, how to run them, etc. You will need to use the GUI to download the emails. Everything runs locally and for your credentials. So when you're accessing Gmail, etc., it's actually stored on the OS level native vault for passwords. So your OS will actually prompt you. There's nothing that is stored on the database. The database is SQLite. All of that is visible to you if you want to, but the actual passwords are never stored. So the IMAP credentials, or if you do Google authentication, sign in with Google, they are also not stored. So those go to your OS vault. I have not tested this on Windows or Linux, but should work out of the box. Definitely tested on macOS. So yeah, feel free to watch the rest of the video. Let me know if you have questions. You can ask me. I'm available on multiple channels, but also of course on YouTube. Have fun. Here's another one that I'm trying to figure out, and this is a good example where the technicality of this is a bit more nuanced. So currently the extractor for the template, or rather the matching algorithm, it works only with the plain text part of an email. If you do not know what that is, then the context of it is that every email has multiple parts to it, and we may not see that. Sometimes we do see it's very visible because it has attachments, but an email is actually all of it. So an email is the plain text part of it, the HTML part of it. Sometimes the email provider will send an HTML part. Sometimes they will not. Sometimes they'll send the plain text part. Sometimes they will not. Generally, these days, all modern email senders will send both. This seems to be an old email and edge case, where if you look at the processing, if you look at the parsing, you'll see that they all come out as placeholders being just blank placeholders, no text at all. Like generally my processor works like this, and it gives text, and then we have variables. But this one, I noticed that it has no text at all, just a list of just a list of placeholders. And this hinted me that somehow there was no text in the body of the email. So what I did is I went to the original email. I just copied the subject of this, and this is like extra legwork that we will need to do even if when we are working with AI. I'm still not looking at code, and that's the main aspect here. It's still debugging, and the debugging may need you to go into the source of the data. So we are going to go into the email. I found this email. I simply searched for subject with this subject line. Of course, I got a couple emails. I looked at the original. So there's where you can go into, and these are like common practices that if you build that mental model of like figuring out where this might be, how can I see the source data? Maybe there's something odd, and immediately it was clear to me there's something odd because there is content type text/HTML. So there's the HTML version that we see in, let's say, Gmail interface, but there is no plain text version. There is no plain text version, right? You can see each part of the email is labeled like this. Each has its own content type, etc. So this is images. These are all the attachments, let's say, that you see. And then you have, so all attachments, by the way, of an email are actually directly in the email. That's how raw email works. But for our context, what we wanted is text/plain. There should have been a text/plain, which is what our parser works on. It could not find it. So of course the entire processing fails because this to the parser looks like one string, or I don't even know if it is reading it, by the way. So what I did was, naturally what I do is like just ask the model. That's it. So I asked, I gave it the example. If you look at my prompt, I gave it the example. Hey, this is the situation. I'm seeing the output in the CLI in a very funny output, and I just describe it. That's it. Just like normal conversation. So to have that conversation, to have that internal conversation in your mind, to be able to figure out where might the source data be breaking, and to kind of go ahead and ask that question. That's mostly what is needed now. The digging part of engineering, right? The code, they will figure out, and the models are smart enough to figure out that, oh, okay, yeah, you're reading, subject and body text, but you're not reading HTML. So HTML is totally missed out, which means that the body text is empty, subject is not empty. So the email is actually used for processing because the subject is kind of a flag. If the subject is there, then we do start extraction or the template generation, and that part fails because the body subject is there. Sorry, the subject is there, but the body text is not there, right? And this is something I did not assume. I would rather I assumed in a wrong way when I started this process, that all emails would have plain text, right? But seemingly all emails don't have plain text. Some have only HTML, right? And that's totally fine. So here was a very little example that you have to go through this. And of course, it's easy to see that it has already suggested, it's so nice. It has already suggested that, yeah, we can add another step into your, see that's the whole system. Once you start building your software like this, right? Once you start designing software in this way, where you have thought through all the edge cases, you have very clear in your code all the edge case handlers, it will figure out that, oh, okay, there are many other steps. We are doing many things, so maybe another thing should be to fall back from HTML to extract text out of HTML and then run the processor. So I'll be like, yeah, cool. Let's add that extra step to get text from HTML and then feed into our parser only when plain text is not available and HTML is available. Just specify email and done. That's it. Generally speaking, and this, I have become so confident of this because that's the whole point, right? We are still being developers. It's just that, of course, we are cutting out a lot of the handwriting of code and thinking, and also it's so much faster. It's so much faster. Like, I go through so much logic. This software has already become so large, and it encompasses so many wide variety of documents. It processes on, not documents, but it will work on documents, but you can imagine emails or different formats, etc. And it all works, right? Wherever it fails, I'm dealing with edge case after edge case after edge case. It is becoming better, and it is going to become, see, look at this result here, right? It comes out so cleanly. Even the phone numbers come out cleanly, the amounts paid come out cleanly, the dates are being passed, and it was not being passed just a while back. So yeah, here is another previous example. I am recording this after the fact, after I've already fixed it, but I want to still show it to you. So this one is, the dates are not being parsed, okay? And of course, I noticed that there is a dot here. There's a period sign, right? The full stop, right? Full stop, period, whatever you call it. And I thought, okay, maybe that is filling it. I don't know, to be honest. Again, I don't dig into the code, right? That's the whole point. I'm not digging into the code. I am just seeing the pattern why this failed. So this should have been an issued date. And I know from the type that this should have somehow been passed as a date, because of course the Rust type for date is very clear. It should be. I mean, I can double check the code. Let's do it for just the sake of the video. So if I go into our source types, our shared types, if I go into this, this is a transaction, right? This is a transaction. There's a type bill or transaction. I think there's a type bill. So this should be here. And then I should have issued date. Yeah, I see issued date. Okay. And issued date raw and issued date. So issued date should be saved as date time in the database. Okay. Of course, here it's just string. I guess we could create a date type in Rust, and instead of putting this string, it could be a date type, and then the parsing would be even better. I can definitely update that. That's just a thought that I see now. That can be updated, but this is, I guess, like, I think it was done to reflect what it is going to be in the database, because in the database, when you put a date, any date representation, you're going to store string. Okay, as in your data type in your programming language will still be string, and in the database it will be string. It'll be a timestamp. It'll be stored as a timestamp, but and that could be done by the way. Those are efficient. Now I'm thinking through, as I'm thinking through. So that can be timestamp. I'm guessing what it is doing is parsing as ISO 8601, right? Parsed and then stored as text. Maybe we should rethink that, and we should store as a timestamp. Right, so that's the number of seconds since epoch, right, as we call it. We can do those things. So again, like that's the main point. It's to figure out that, okay, this failed. Okay, we should have had the type. Why did it not parse? And that's a good thing that it does not parse, right? So there's a fuzzy date parsing logic. Something has failed. So all I did was, I don't know if I have the chat history here because it's a bit behind. Yeah, it does, right? So here the model is saying yes. The model has said that this is happening because blah 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 blah, because yes, because so there's a trimming problem, there's something nah nah nah. I forgot a bit of the context, I'm just going through it now, but yeah, it gives me a good explanation, and that the parser fails blah blah blah, and then it fixed it. I had a little more negotiation with it. I also asked, like, okay, if you think it is failing because of the trailing dot, the trailing period sign, why is it failing also in the second line here where there is no such dot, right? And you can always ask these questions, that is it is this the valid conclusion, is there something else to it, etc. But yeah, this was good enough. I think I read through it and I was like, yeah, okay, this seems good. And of course the test is always in running the code, right? I ran the code, so here it is. Now if you look at it, okay, this has been processed, right? So my bills are coming out. The fact that these are being interpreted, this is definitely wrong. Right, it's coming out with the dot, so we have to clean that up, but that's fine, that can be done. There can be an extra step to do all the cleaning, but that's not the hard part. But you can imagine now the processing is happening, so I'm guessing my date parser has become more lenient, and now it's also capturing the dot, which is weird. It should not, blah blah blah, but step by step, right? So it's visually to check, right? That's how it should be. I think my error is what I mentioned, is that this type should not be string. Okay, that's where really the problem lies. The moment you make it not a string but some native, whatever your programming language allows, like a date holder, date time holder, whatever you want, right, and it has to be strongly typed that way, then you're parsing, and then when you're saving the data into the temporary object for the programming language, you will immediately get an error, right? So this will not work. Maybe the date parser says that this part is date, that's great, I'm happy, woohoo, and then the trailing dot was there. It still kind of kept, because at the end of the day you're putting it into a string. That's where the real mistake is. This should not be a string. I'll get that sorted, and this would be better. So maybe I'll record another video for that. So now I'm dealing with the date issue, like I showed. This parsing is wrong. Again, it's about evolving. That's how at least I work. My modus operandi, my way to work is to keep on improving. There is no set goal. It's not like everything will just come out magically correct. So what I feel is like we should not have strings, and that's what I counted for. That's what I'm accounting for, at least, that we should not have strings. Whatever can be a better type should be, because right now I'm not investing so much time to figure out what would be a really good, the best native type to store. I'm not doing that. Instead, I'm just saying that, hey, I just see that these Rust types are option string, both in the let's say the raw as we extracted, and after parsing. In fact, like the raw should be kept, that's fine, it's the raw, but the parsed one, should be Rust native type for datetime or timestamp. And if SQLite supports, because this is on SQLite, so you could also generally say just if the DB supports, if our DB supports and things like that, we'll figure out. So if SQLite supports a better type, we should use that. Remember, context is key here, right? So how much context can you expect from the model, and how much context do you keep in your mind? That's really the main battle with the current situation with coding agents. It's always about context. So here the context is, I know that I want to convert to some types. I want to always put to some types. I want to always parse, right? So that's my North Star. That should be also the North Star of the coding agent, right? In this particular situation for this particular project. But sometimes it misses the context, right? Because there's a lot of code that has been generated. There's a lot of code that is in the system. Some of that maybe is not aligned with that North Star. And maybe it's a bit older code, because of course the software has also evolved. My North Star about being about data types or parts don't validate that whole ideology or that whole idea. maybe I didn't start off with that, right? I added that, so I have accumulated some debt. But that is exactly the point. When people see like, oh, AI based coding will always accumulate tech debt. No, this will happen even in normal software. Like entirety of software written in many programming languages is like tech debt, not just parts of it. Like the whole software is tech debt. So I don't want to get into that debate where somebody says like, oh, okay, anything generated by AI is tech debt. No, it's about how you guide the process. So here, improving slightly, right, is the way to go. And of course, there's a migration system. I have schema migrations. These can be run. By the way, before I release the software, I'll flatten all my migrations, because I'm doing a lot of edits to the table structures, etc. So I'll flatten them. But these are some key considerations. As you can see, we have already converted everything to begins, right? So the parsed stuff will be begin. Of course, the storage raw will be text. The parsed will be begins. And also in the Rust side, I can see the change has been made. These are now I64. So on the parsed side, in Rust, we are storing them as I64, and then in SQLite, we are storing them as begins now, which means we will convert, which means that this will be first parsed as a timestamp, okay, and then shown as a date. And that's much better. Of course, we can show the raw date, we can show a processed date, that's totally fine, that's just a UI thing. But the core point is very simple, right? We are always going back to the core data types, okay? Everything has to be typed. We are not going to leave exceptions. And the moment you do that, I'll run this, and maybe in the next video, we'll see that if it runs much better or not. But my hope is that it will run better this time, okay? This is a nuance between coding agents I want to just highlight. This is the behavior of some coding agents, and they differ a bit. So here, I did some updates to the code and my database migration had to be changed. So we have migrations for schema changes, and then it figured out that some of the columns have to be changed. So it said that if you have not run version 13 of migrations, then, new columns can be updated. I guess it'll just rewrite that existing file. Otherwise, if the migrations have run, so v13 is already in the database, that means that it has to create a new v14 to alter the schema, right? And of course, this is a very valid choice. But what is different from, between coding agent to coding agent is that some coding agents, I believe Claude Code is a little more like that. It'll do a little more by itself, okay? And Codex generally is a little more hesitant. At least that's my feeling, okay? So Codex will suggest that, hey, this could be the situation, and it's waiting for you to give confirmation. Claude Code might go ahead and actually do it. Like it might actually open the database, SQLite database, easy to open. It knows the config file, etc. It'll figure out if it has that context that, yeah, this is, the database file is available. Let me just go find out. So it'll find out that v13 has already run, which is easy to find out, by the way. All you have to do is just run this command, the schema history. That's it. You just get the schema history from this database. As you can see, 13 has already run. So then it'll probably even go ahead and create a v14 and run it, etc., etc. So some agents will do that, some harnesses will do that, and some will not, okay? So I have seen that Codex generally does not. Codex is a little more hesitant, or a little more like it's like waiting for you to say, okay, take the next step, right? Which I feel is a better way, because that's how I like working. All the decisions that are little like, okay, these are ancillary things, these are accessory things, let's not do them automatically, okay? This is an example where the agent goes ahead and checks something directly, even though I have not mentioned it from the database. And this is like standard behavior these days, to be honest. Like, it just happens. Of course, like I said, Codex is a little more conservative, but still it did it. So all I asked was that, okay, I was dealing with something in database migrations. That's fine now, but I still see this because I saw that these are coming through these things, right? So it's no text, just placeholders. So then I just pasted that and I said, and what it did, it was like, okay, yeah, I'll just check the database, because it figured, in this context, that it has to check the database, because why is this coming like this? Is there like no, like, is the email not valid, or rather the HTML is just not good enough, or somehow the fallback is not kicking in, or some, it's still working with blank emails, etc., etc. So to know that, right, it has to get to the raw data. And yeah, in this case, it takes a decision that, yeah, let me just open the database, and it already knows from the config file, it already knows the project structure, right? So it can figure out this is where the database is. I'll just run the command, and it did. And it seems to have gone ahead and made some fixes, which I will run again now and see. At the end of the day, right, all of this helps the development process, right? It's not just it's that mental capacity. Hey, I have to go into the database, look for the data, that's like running SQL, etc., and finding the right data. All of that actually matters. So we are looking at a new development process where we are not doing that. We are skipping some of those things. Of course, how much do you skip? Again, that's the real dance here, right? You're having a dance with a partner, with some people say an exoskeleton, some say a partner. I don't know. However you term it, it doesn't really matter. By the way, now dates are coming out all clean, just for context, and they are coming from the parse state. So we are representing the parts. We are taking the parse state, and then we are showing it again as kind of a humanized format. So yeah, this has to be now correct, right? Because once your date has been parsed, it has been parsed as an integer, as a timestamp. So you cannot get it wrong as such. Of course, then your date parsing maybe library has some issues, but that's generally not the case, right? So yeah, this gives you good context of I guess, this bit that I was talking about. There's another thing I wanted to mention, which is that in this particular chat, in one chat, I've switched the context, at least the minor detail of the context, multiple times. So I've talked about the date parsing logic. I have talked about the parsing of this placeholder mess that we have, emails, etc., right? And I'm constantly testing on this other side. I'm running them. I'm going back here, chatting. This is usually something I don't do. I do not mix different concerns in the same chat. I usually keep them separate. I create new chats a lot, all the time. The only reason this time I'm not doing it is because I'm looking at my context and it's not going down that much. So I still have 72% left, even though I've been working on this for almost an hour now. And these small prompts, because they all relate to that one parser, one template extractor, one template, whatever, right? Okay, it still has failed, by the way, as you can see, and I'm going to keep drilling into it. I'm going to ask it to run this. That's the best way, and it's going to improve itself. That's generally what I do when I get frustrated with something just not working after a while. But yeah, you get the you understand now. Here's another quick win. Again, it's that improvement driven development model. Okay, again, I'm not looking at code, but I'm going to show you very specifically where the system failed. Okay, how I improved, actually didn't improve, and then finally it improved. So this is an email, and this was failing. This particular email with this subject was failing. So what I did was, again, go back to Gmail. I found these emails were there. These are very old emails, by 2017, right? So it does not matter. The reason I'm so focused on making sure this system works on a variety of emails, simply because if I have that many emails where there are many edge cases, they are failing. That means when this product goes out for everybody, let's say you use it, your emails will also fail, right? I'll not be able to process. So if my algorithm is just better, broader, and still correct, so it's just broader with many edge case handling, but still correct, because at the end of the day, the data that is being passed has to be correct, right? The types have to be correct. Now, if my algorithm is broad, like for example, I couldn't find text type email, so I fall back on HTML type email, clean the HTML, etc. That loop definitely has issues, because I see that these are also HTML emails. I opened a bunch of them. What I immediately noticed is, and I will show you, look at this. This email, I don't know if it is fully visible. So this email, okay, this email is less wide. And this email is full width in the Gmail interface, but you can understand that like it just caught my attention. Like, that's odd. It's the same email. They should be the same template, but maybe they are not, right? And maybe when we are extracting text out of those templates, there are some minor mistakes happening, and that's what is kind of throwing the parser off. So my immediate goal was, okay, can you find that? So I asked it, like, can you find that problem? Maybe the template is a bit off, or maybe something, right? So I asked it. Now I checked emails with subject, the specific subject, They are HTML emails, and it seems they have minor format difference. Some emails are full width in Gmail while others are less wide. Perhaps that is causing failure with these emails specifically. You can test using the specific subject. So it ran the test. By the way, to run the test, I don't know if I mentioned this in this video series, is that I asked it to not run the LLM part of it. So it's not taking the templates to the large language model, in this case Gemini, but to any large language model. It's just simply switching that off. So it has a template only mode, which I did not remember, but it already has that. So there's a dash template only. I don't know if you see this, but there's a dash template only in my CLI command. So yeah, it ran the tests with those, all good, and it figured out that okay, it can do some improvements because yeah, there are some extraction problems maybe from the HTML to text. There's some things that is just lying around, not working out well, whatever, and it improved according to the system, according to the model, it improved. But when I ran it, and this is where the interesting part is, I'll show you. Let me double check if it is coming in the video. Yes, it is coming in the video. So I ran it. Originally I had this. Okay, so this you can see has like 7 or 8 placeholders here, and then a few more below a certain set of text. Then I reran after it said it has improved, and I see the placeholders have blown up. So it's not better, it's actually worse off, right? So I have much more placeholders now and less text. So then I thought, what is happening? I feel like when we are going from HTML to text, what is happening is that because of how HTML is structured, maybe there are line breaks, whatever, it's creating a lot of small words where there'll be more variance, right? So if you break a sentence and you're not breaking because of the original HTML template, there are breaks happening, and they are kind of like a sentence is being broken by 3-4 different types, then they will appear as 3-4 different variables because they will be different lines. And this is that intuitive thinking process. You have to think through these problems. Maybe the model will not figure it out. When I asked it that could this be the situation, so I simply said, I see that our placeholder have increased. I think too many words are being processed as sentences simply because they are breaking, right? Because of line break. And this was just my assumption. Am I right? I'm asking it, right? Perhaps we can join words into a sentence ending with the detected period. Right? The detected has a spelling mistake, but it doesn't matter for such a long word. Would that help? Thoughts? Okay, that's it. And it says that, yeah, okay, that makes actually a lot of sense. It seems like, yes, the current splitter is too aggressive, so we are breaking words, even like sentences, even into words because of like the template issue in the original HTML, whatever. And then it did it. So it split automatically by period, exclamation mark, and question mark. I didn't ask for these, but it makes a lot of sense now. And I run this. Finally, look at this. Awesome job done. Like, awesome job done. This is so nice. This is like almost the entirety of the email has come out cleanly. There are still some bits. This is probably a link. Links will of course be different in email to email. And there are these, trailing whatever 2 placeholders, which I cannot figure out. But you can imagine that you can keep focusing on this. Your at the end of the day, whatever problem you're solving, right? This is just an example of a problem. And the reason why I'm so focused on this particular problem, again, is this is not your typical CRUD problem. A lot of people say, oh, CRUD is so easy to build. You have your CRUD APIs, your REST is so sorted, etc. This is not CRUD. Okay. This is a really broad parser reverse template generator I'm building. All of that code is being generated with nice negotiations with the coding agents. And it works so well. Like you can run the test hundreds of times and you will get the result in front of your eyes, right? That's the real beauty of such a system. You run the test, you will know. So let me run it, for example, for another one, just to see if I've already broken something else or not, because yeah, everything else is still clean. So another sender's emails also come out very clean with proper placeholders, as I can see. And that's the beauty of this system, right? Once you know that you're doing things, and you can always test them, you know that you have these very strong alignment to where should the types be, how is my parser, what am I breaking, how am I doing sentence breaking, depends on of course on the context. All of this logic, I didn't write the code, I negotiated with AI. I know, of course, I know the engineering behind them. I understand how these systems are supposed to be built, designed, coded, whatever. But now the bar has come down. I think the barrier has come down, and that's the most interesting part. If you're passionate as an engineer, it's so easy to now learn some of these things. Keep trying, keep failing, keep improving, keep trying, keep failing, keep improving. Failures will happen. That's totally fine. That's part of the game. But you now have somebody to negotiate with, somebody to talk to and improve. Okay, this one is something and a half. Yeah, you can probably see that from my smile. So I wanted to go ahead and start processing bank statements. Okay, bank statements are, I mean, it's not complicated, right? We can understand that there is a certain like pattern to them. There's an old statement. I have, so this has my company, this is my personal, and this has my ex-partner. Everything is here, and these are tabs, right, or sheets. And yeah, this was my prompt. I'm going to show you. This was my prompt. The reason that this worked so well, two things. First of all, Excel sheets in back statement have very clear format, right? They have columns, they are columnar data, and columnar data goes well, aligns well to typed, like if you think of columns and then you put them, you're basically pivoting the table, translating, however you say it, into like fields of an object, right? Works very well mentally, but that's also how I think, maybe the model thinks about it. I don't know. But yeah, this was a little longer prompt. It asked for a bunch of things and I put in a lot of references. So first of all, my reference, my develop.md is a fresh chat I have started. And then I asked it to also refer the anchoring, the type based, strong typing based, the pattern. Okay. And then I said basically like create a new module. So this has gone here. This is now a new binary and a new statement extractor. And this is something I clearly mentioned, that create a new model in our agents. Okay. AI model has not even been integrated and already the template looks gorgeous. And yeah, so the prompt is a bit long, but the important thing here is that I have detailed all the things that, again, the context here is very clear. So first of all, I gave it a real Excel document. I downloaded it as a reference. I kept it in the downloads folder. And I asked it to create the binary and test it, continue to improve and test it with the binary. The idea is to extract the template. Same as we were doing with emails, just that this time the template will run on multiple rows for the same file. A statement is multiple rows of transactions, right? So the template will work on multiple rows of the same file. And then of course there's an intro text, you could say prelude, intro text. Of course, bank statements generally have like bank address or your details, etc. So as you can see, some of these are here. And yeah, these are the templates. Like this thing is gorgeous because first of all, like this is so nice. Okay. So this has all the typed things being extracted. Of course, here we don't have the backing type for everything yet, because my native Rust type for financial transaction does not have, for example, check reference number. I mean, it has a reference number, reference field, but yeah, maybe this is not the same. I'll figure that out. There's a narration. Narration is just like a one-liner description, right? Then there's a value date, which makes sense. Then there's a withdrawal amount, deposit amount. Awesome stuff. I don't have closing balance in my native type, but it went ahead and it figured out that these are what it can extract as a template. And this template can run then on a row wise. I have not asked it to finish all of that. I'll do, but this is one shot attempt, like the first attempt. All of this code was written, and yeah, I ran it and it works. It really works. And it's so good because this aligns so well with the rest of the code. And that's what I keep on saying: improve, learn, be in a repetition cycle. If you do that, you will come out. And by the way, the entire time I was actually out for lunch. That's the beauty of this whole system. I just prompted, I went for lunch. I went to my mom's place and I came back and I ran it and I was like, wow, this thing is so cool, so nice. That's the main benefit. If you are with that mindset to solve problems, you will be able to solve problems really well. And for that, you're not sitting there typing the code. Of course, you have to babysit, sometimes handhold the model, the harness, the coding agent, whatever. But you are saving so much time because there are so many nuances in this code, right? There are so many, see, it is fixing errors, logic errors. It has all done that because it has run probably the system, it has seen errors and it has fixed it multiple times, right? This was the first attempt at the whole code. Then it fixed, I think 4 times, I see 4 times, okay? So some failed, whatever, blah, blah, blah. right? And it has used also Calamine. Calamine is a great Rust library for reading. I believe Calamine is for reading Excel sheets. I can double check that. Rust Calamine. Calamine Rust. Yeah, I think that's for Excel sheet. Yes, Excel. And it works really well for particularly reading Excel because I'm reading Excel. So it works really well. And yeah, what can I say? This is the real power that we have now in our hands, right? How you use it, how you work around with it. Of course, it has some limitations, but how you do all of that is up to you. But the proof, like I always say, is in the code. Go ahead, check the code, go ahead, test the results, go ahead, run the systems, and then you know if you've built good software or slop.